My name is Emily Lawson and I'm 26 years old. If someone had told me 3 months ago that a simple family dinner would expose the biggest betrayal of my life, I would have laughed. But here I am, staring across the mahogany dining table at my parents, my world crashing down around me. "How's the $10,000 I deposited last month?" Mom asked casually, cutting into her pot roast like she was discussing the weather. Her gold bracelet clinked against her wine glass as she reached for it. I felt my fork freeze halfway to my mouth. "What deposit?" The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's face went completely white, his hand trembling as he set down his glass. The red wine sloshed, staining the white tablecloth like blood. Mom's eyes darted between us, confusion flickering across her features. "The money for your business loan," she continued, oblivious to the tension crackling through the air. "Your father said you needed help with the down payment for that boutique you wanted to open." My stomach dropped. I hadn't asked for any money. I hadn't even told them about the boutique idea yet. It was still just a dream I'd been nurturing in secret, saving every penny from my marketing job to make it reality. Dad cleared his throat, his voice barely a whisper. "Maybe we should discuss this later." But there was no later. The truth was sitting right there at the table with us, thick as the gravy Mom had made. Something was very, very wrong, and I was about to find out just how deep this rabbit hole went. "No, we're discussing this now," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The candles Mom had lit for our monthly family dinner flickered ominously, casting dancing shadows across the walls. "Mom, I never asked for any money." She set down her fork with a sharp clink. "That's impossible. Your father specifically told me you called, desperate for help. He showed me your text messages." I turned to Dad, searching his weathered face for answers. At 55, Robert Lawson had always been my hero. The man who taught me to ride a bike, who walked me down the aisle at my cousin's wedding because I was afraid, who promised he'd always protect me. "Dad." My voice cracked on the word. He couldn't meet my eyes. Instead, he stared at his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. His usually confident demeanor had crumbled, leaving behind a stranger I didn't recognize. "Show me the text messages," I demanded, pulling out my phone. "Show me exactly what I supposedly sent you." Mom looked between us, realization dawning on her face like a slow sunrise. "Robert, what's going on?" The grandfather clock in the corner timed 7 times, each toll feeling like a death knell. Dad's hands shook as he reached for his phone, his wedding ring catching the light. 28 years of marriage, and Mom was looking at him like she'd never seen him before. "I can explain," he whispered. "But some things can't be explained away. Some betrayals cut so deep they change the very foundation of who you are." I was about to learn that sometimes the people you trust most are the ones capable of hurting you beyond repair. "Explain what exactly?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. The dining room suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. "Explain how you stole $10,000 from Mom by using my name?" Dad finally looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I was going to pay it back before anyone found out." Mom's hand flew to her chest. "Pay it back? Robert, that was our emergency fund. The money we've been saving for my surgery." "The surgery? How could I forget?" Mom had been diagnosed with a benign but growing tumor in her spine. The insurance would cover most of it, but they'd been saving for months to cover the deductible and recovery costs. Money that was apparently now gone. "Where is the money, Dad?" I asked, though I was starting to fear the answer. He ran his hands through his graying hair, a gesture I'd seen him do 1,000 times when he was stressed about work. But this was different. This was the gesture of a man whose world was collapsing. "I made some investments," he mumbled. "Bad ones. I thought I could double the money, pay back what I borrowed, and help you with your business dreams all at the same time." "Investments?" Mom's voice was barely above a whisper. "What kind of investments?" The room spun around me. This wasn't just about stolen money anymore. This was about trust, family, and the devastating realization that the man who raised me to always tell the truth had been living a lie. Outside, rain began pattering against the windows, as if the universe itself was weeping for what we'd lost. "Tell her the truth, Robert." The voice came from behind us. We all turned to see Uncle Benjamin standing in the doorway, his face grim. He must have used his spare key to get in. "Tell her where the money really went." Dad's face crumpled. "Benjamin, please. No more lies." Uncle Benjamin stepped into the room, his presence commanding despite his slight frame. At 58, he was 3 years older than Dad and had always been the responsible one. Tell them about the poker games. The word hit me like a physical blow. Poker games. Not investments. Gambling. Mom made a sound I'd never heard before. Part sob, part gasp. Her chair scraped against the hardwood floor as she stood up, backing away from the table like it was contaminated. How long? She whispered. 2 years, Uncle Benjamin answered when Dad remained silent. I've been covering for him, but I can't anymore. Not when he's stealing from his own family. 2 years. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks to save for my dreams, while Mom had been picking up extra shifts at the hospital to save for her surgery, Dad had been gambling away our family's future one hand at a time. I won $8,000 last month, Dad finally spoke, his voice hollow. I was so close to paying everything back. Just needed one more big win. One more big win? I stood up so fast my chair toppled over. Dad, you gambled away Mom's surgery money for one more big win? The rain outside intensified, matching the storm brewing in my chest. 26 years of trusting this man, and he'd been living a double life right under our noses. Emily, sit down, Uncle Benjamin said gently. There's more. More. I felt like I was drowning, each revelation pulling me deeper underwater. Mom had sunk back into her chair, her face pale as parchment. Tell them about the house, Uncle Benjamin continued, his voice heavy with years of carrying someone else's secrets. The house. Mom's voice was barely audible. Dad's shoulders shook. I took out a second mortgage 6 months ago. $25,000. I was going to use the winnings to pay it off before you noticed. The words hit the room like grenades. Our childhood home, the place where I'd taken my first steps, celebrated every birthday, cried over every heartbreak. It was all at risk. Robert Lawson, look at me. Mom's voice had changed, becoming steel wrapped in silk. Look at your wife and daughter and tell us exactly how much we owe. Uncle Benjamin pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. I've been keeping track because I knew this day would come. The second mortgage, the credit cards he opened in your name, Margaret, the personal loans he's taken from his co-workers. He placed the paper on the table like it was evidence in a trial. In a way it was. $47,000, he said quietly. That's what you're in the hole for. I felt the room tilt. $47,000. That wasn't just gambling debt. That was our entire lives crumbling down around us. Mom's surgery, my business dreams, their retirement. All of it gone. How could you? I whispered, staring at the man who'd raised me to believe that family meant everything. Mom stood up slowly, her movements deliberate and controlled. She walked to the china cabinet and pulled out the family Bible. The one her grandmother had given her, the one we'd sworn on as children when promising to tell the truth. Swear on this, she said, placing it in front of Dad. Swear that you've told us everything. Dad stared at the worn leather cover, his hands trembling. Margaret, I swear it, Robert. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. 28 years of marriage hung in the balance, and I watched my father make the choice that would define the rest of our lives. I can't, he whispered. Mom's face didn't change, but something in her eyes died. What else? Uncle Benjamin cleared his throat. The money he borrowed from Emily's college fund. The $15,000 your parents left you in their will. The savings bonds he cashed in that were meant for your grandchildren. Each word was another knife to the heart. My college fund, the one that had helped me graduate debt-free. The inheritance from my beloved grandparents. Money that was supposed to secure our family's future. All gambled away on cards and false hope. $62,000 total, Uncle Benjamin concluded. Plus interest on the loans. Mom picked up the Bible and held it against her chest. I want you out of this house tonight, Robert. Take whatever you can carry, but you're not sleeping under this roof. Margaret, please. Out. Her voice was quiet but absolute. Before I change my mind and call the police myself. I found myself in the impossible position of watching my family disintegrate in real time. Dad looked at me with desperate eyes, silently pleading for an intervention that wasn't coming. Emily, baby, you know I love you. I made mistakes, but I'm still your father. The manipulation was subtle but unmistakable. He was asking me to choose between him and Mom, between loyalty and justice. But after what I'd learned tonight, the choice wasn't as hard as he thought it would be. You stole my college fund, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. The fund my grandparents started when I was born. The one they contributed to every birthday and Christmas. You took that and gambled it away. I was going to replace it. With what money, Dad? The money you won gambling? The money you were going to steal from Mom's surgery fund. Uncle Benjamin placed a hand on my shoulder. Emily, there's something else. The reason I finally had to speak up tonight. I closed my eyes, bracing for another blow. He came to me yesterday asking for your address. Said he wanted to apply for credit cards in your name. The room spun. Not only had he stolen from us, but he'd been planning to destroy my credit, my future, everything I'd worked so hard to build. Mom's sharp intake of breath cut through the air. He was going to ruin you too. I looked at this man who'd raised me, who'd taught me right from wrong, and realized I was looking at a stranger. The father I'd loved and respected had been a facade, a mask covering an addiction that had consumed everything good about him. Pack your bags, Dad. Now. At midnight, I sat with Mom on the living room couch, both of us staring at the financial documents Uncle Benjamin had left behind. The numbers told a story of systematic betrayal stretching back years. How did I not see it? Mom whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way he'd disappear on weekends. I thought back to all the signs I'd missed too. The times Dad had seemed nervous when bills came in the mail. The way he'd changed the subject whenever Mom talked about retirement plans. The expensive watch he'd worn for exactly 1 week before it mysteriously disappeared. He got good at hiding it, I said, though the words felt inadequate. Mom pulled out her phone and showed me a text message. Look what he sent an hour ago. Asterisk. I'm at Benjamin's. I know you're angry, but this is still my house too. I'll be back tomorrow to talk. The audacity took my breath away. Even now, even after everything had been exposed, he was still trying to control the narrative. He doesn't get to decide when we're ready to talk, I said, anger building in my chest like a fire. He doesn't get to steal everything and then waltz back in when it's convenient for him. Mom nodded, something hardening in her expression. Call Robert, she said. Tell him if he sets foot on this property, I'm calling the police. Tell him he has until Friday to figure out where he's going to live permanently. I dialed Dad's number, my hands surprisingly steady. When he answered, his voice was slurred with alcohol. Emily, baby, I knew you'd call. You understand, right? I never meant for any of this to happen. Dad, you have until Friday to find somewhere permanent to live. The next morning, Mom and I sat across from Mrs. Harris, our family banker for the past 15 years. The woman who'd helped us open my first savings account, who'd walked Mom through her first business loan, was now the bearer of even worse news. I'm sorry to tell you this, Margaret, but the joint checking account was emptied yesterday at 6 p.m. Mom's face went ashen. What do you mean, emptied? $2,300. The entire balance. It was withdrawn from an ATM across town. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. While we were confronting him about the $10,000, while Mom was crying over her surgery fund, Dad had been planning his next move. The moment he left our house, he'd gone straight to drain what little money Mom had left. That was my paycheck, Mom whispered. That was grocery money, gas money. Mrs. Harris's expression was sympathetic but professional. Because it's a joint account, the withdrawal was legal. However, given what you've told me, I'd strongly recommend removing Mr. Lawson from all accounts immediately. What about the mortgage? I asked, dreading the answer. Mrs. Harris pulled up another screen. The house payment is 3 months behind. You have until the end of next month before foreclosure proceedings begin. 3 months behind. While Mom had been faithfully writing the mortgage check every month, Dad had been intercepting it, using the money for gambling while letting our house slip into foreclosure. I need to use the bathroom, Mom said quietly, her voice barely controlled. The moment she left, Mrs. Harris leaned forward. Emily, I'm speaking as someone who's known your family for years, not as a banker. Your mother needs to file for divorce immediately and separate her finances completely. This level of financial abuse, it's only going to get worse. I drove to Uncle Benjamin's apartment complex that afternoon, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. The anger I'd been holding back was finally boiling over, and Dad was about to face the full force of it. Uncle Benjamin answered the door looking exhausted. He's not here, Emily. He left this morning. Where did he go? I don't know, and honestly I don't care anymore. I can't keep enabling him. I pushed past him into the small apartment. Benjamin, he emptied Mom's checking account last night. $2,300. Her entire paycheck. Uncle Benjamin sank onto his couch like I'd physically struck him. Jesus. I thought. I hoped once everything was out in the open he'd stop. People like Dad don't stop. They just find new ways to take what isn't theirs. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park in an hour. Dad asterisk. I showed the message to Uncle Benjamin. He wants to meet. Don't go alone, he warned. Your father. When he's desperate, he's not the man you grew up knowing. If I was going, I needed to look him in the eye and tell him exactly what I thought of his choices. I needed him to understand that his actions had consequences, and those consequences were just beginning. The drive to Riverside Park felt like driving to my own execution. But sometimes you have to face the monster to truly kill it. At the park, I found Dad sitting on our old picnic table. The one where we'd had countless family barbecues, where he'd taught me to play chess, where I'd cried to him about my first heartbreak. I knew you'd come, he said without turning around. I came to tell you it's over. Dad turned to face me and I barely recognized the man sitting there. His clothes were wrinkled, his face unshaven, his eyes bloodshot and desperate. This wasn't the composed father I'd grown up with. This was an addict backed into a corner. Emily, I need your help. Just this once and I promise I'll get clean. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed across the empty park. Help? Like I helped by having my college funds stolen? Like Mom helped by having her surgery money gambled away? I can win it all back. I have a system now, I've been studying the patterns. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop talking. But he couldn't stop because addicts never can. The words poured out of him like water from a broken dam. Excuses, promises, manipulations. He told me about his childhood, about the pressure he felt as the breadwinner, about how the gambling started as just a way to relax after work. You were always my favorite, he said, playing his final card. You're the only one who really understands me. Your mother, she's good with money, but she doesn't understand that sometimes you have to take risks to get ahead in life. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost insulting. He was trying to pit me against Mom, trying to make me complicit in his lies. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady and cold. You're going to sign divorce papers when Mom's lawyer sends them. You're going to relinquish any claim to the house. And you're never going to contact either of us again. You can't mean that. I absolutely mean that. You're not my father anymore. Fathers protect their families. They don't destroy them. I stood up and walked away, leaving him sitting alone at that picnic table where so many good memories had been made. 3 weeks later, Mom and I sat in the office of Sarah Martinez, the divorce attorney recommended by Mrs. Harris. The papers were spread across her desk like battle plans, and in a way that's exactly what they were. The good news is that gambling debts incurred during marriage aren't automatically the spouse's responsibility, especially when acquired through deception, Sarah explained. We can protect Margaret's assets and ensure she's not liable for most of these debts. Mom signed each document with a firm hand, her jaw set with determination I'd never seen before. The woman who'd spent 28 years trying to make everyone else happy was finally putting herself first. What about the house? I asked. We're working out a payment plan with the bank. Your mother's job at the hospital provides good references for her character, and they're willing to work with us on the back payments. Meanwhile, I'd been busy too. The boutique dream wasn't dead. It was just changing shape. Instead of a physical store, I'd started an online business selling curated vintage finds. The name Phoenix Vintage felt appropriate, considering how we were all rising from the ashes of Dad's destruction. Any word from Robert? Sarah asked. Mom shook her head. He's been completely silent since Emily talked to him at the park. It was better that way. Some bridges need to be burned completely to prevent yourself from ever being tempted to cross them again. Dad had made his choice when he chose gambling over his family. Now we were making ours. The healing wouldn't be quick or easy, but for the first time in months I felt like we were moving forward instead of just surviving. 6 months later, I sat in the kitchen of our saved home, laptop open, processing orders for Phoenix Vintage. The morning sun streamed through windows that were finally ours again, painting everything in golden light. Mom walked in wearing her scrubs, a smile on her face that had become more common lately. Her surgery had been successful. We'd managed to save enough money by selling some of Dad's belongings and taking a loan from Uncle Benjamin. "How's business today?" she asked, pouring herself coffee from the pot I'd made earlier. 3 new orders this morning, including a big one from a customer in California. I think I'm going to need to hire help soon. She sat down across from me, her expression soft. "Your father called Benjamin yesterday." I looked up from my laptop. "And?" "He's in a treatment program. Says he wants to make amends." The words hung in the air between us. Part of me, the part that was still his daughter despite everything, wanted to feel hopeful. But the larger part, the part that had learned hard lessons about trust and consequences, remained unmoved. "That's good for him," I said carefully. "But it doesn't change anything for us." Mom nodded. "I told Benjamin the same thing. Robert made his choices. We've made ours." Outside, I could hear children playing in the neighborhood, their laughter carrying on the breeze. It was the sound of normal life continuing, of families who still trusted each other, of innocence not yet shattered by betrayal. "Do you ever miss him?" I asked. Mom considered the question for a long moment. "I miss who I thought he was. But that person might never have existed in the first place." I understood exactly what she meant. You can't miss someone who was built on lies. My phone buzzed with another order notification and I smiled. Phoenix Vintage was more than just a business. It was proof that you could build something beautiful from the ruins of what came before. Here's what keeps me up at night. Did Emily just teach everyone a valuable lesson about consequences, or did they throw away people who genuinely didn't know better? I honestly can't decide. Help me out in the comments below. And if you're addicted to stories where backbone wins the day, subscribe, you're going to love what's next.